Hi everyone, today we are going to study logical design in detail. In our previous video, we had studied the description or introduction of what a logical design is. Now we know that there are certain elements which are required for the logical design of the system. So what are these elements? The first element is the form. So here we will look at form design. System inputs are designed through forms. So this statement means that whenever the system has to take inputs, they are usually taken through forms. For example, when you log into websites, you log into job portals, you see that whenever you have to fill your information, that means when you are providing input to the system, you are providing it through forms. There are some rules for input design, and these rules are, first of all, you must capture only variable data. That means data that is variable, only that kind of data must be captured through forms. The second rule says, do not capture data that can be calculated or stored in computer programs. So any such data that can be calculated or processed, or any such data that can be stored in computer programs, must not be captured through the forms as input. Use codes for appropriate attributes. Wherever there are some attributes, you must use relevant codes for such attributes. Include instructions for completing the form. Instructions must be provided to the end user to complete the form so that know what kind of data has to be filled in what kind of field, and data to enter should be sequenced. That means the form should be designed in such a manner that whatever data the user enters one by one is in a relevant order or in a relevant sequence. Now, when we design forms, there are certain graphical user interface controls or GUI controls which help you to provide inputs through forms. These GUIs are, the first and most basic one is your text box. You all have seen text box while entering information in the forms. So it allows for single or multiple lines of characters to be entered. You can either enter a single line of characters or multiple line of characters through the text box. Like here you can see one text box. It asks you to provide your password. Through text box you enter your username, you enter your passwords. So text box look like this, and we all have used text boxes while filling out forms or otherwise also. When we log into any website, then also we are provided with text boxes to enter our usernames or email address or passwords. The second GUI control is your radio button. We all are familiar with radio buttons also. They look something like this. So there are, say for example, there is a radio button to know your gender, whether you are a female or a male. So depending upon your gender, you will click on the appropriate radio button. The moment I click on this radio button to take a female, a dot inside will this appear. So these are the radio buttons which help you to choose one out of the two options or three options. Radio buttons provide the users with an easy way to quickly identify and select a particular value from a value set. Like here, from a value set of female and male, depending upon our gender, we can select a value female or a value male. A radio button consists of a small circle and an associated textual description which responds to the value choice, right? So this circle in this radio button immediately tells you that I have selected female as the choice. Radio buttons normally appear in groups as one radio button per value choice. Then we have the drop down list. Drop down list also we all are familiar with. There is a list, and when you click on this arrow, the list drops down. It drops to the bottom, hence it is known as the drop down list. And then when it drops down, it gives you the list of all available options, out of which you can select your desired option. So it is also like a list box, but is intended to suggest the existence of hidden list of possible values for a data item. Like you cannot scroll through the drop down list. There is no scroll option wherein you can scroll and see the list of various options. You just have one arrow to which you click, and then the list drops down, and then you can see the list of all available options, hence the name drop down box. So all the data items, like here you can see these are sample data items, they can be seen once the drop down list drops down when you select this particular arrow. Then is your combination box. So talking of the combination box, it is also known as the combo box. It is a box which provides you a combination of several options, hence the name combination box. So it is also known as the combo box because it combines the capabilities of a text box and list box. So in a combination box or in a combo box, you will be provided both with a text box and a list box. Like here you can see this is a list box. What is a list box? When you click on this down arrow, you can see a list of items. You can scroll through the list of all those items. And text box you all are familiar with, wherein you can enter the text. Like this is the text box and this is the list box. So otherwise you have the list box and the combination and the text box separately, but in a combination box it combines the text box and list box. That means you can see both the list box and the text box together in a combination box. So basically a combo box gives the user the flexibility of entering data items or values or selecting its value from a list. You can select the values from the list also, or you can directly enter the values in the text box also. So you are provided with the flexibility of deciding whether you want to enter values through the list box or through the text box. Then is your checkbox. Checkbox also we all must have used at least once in our lifetimes. They look something like this. The square boxes which when selected have a check mark in front of them. When you select that particular, otherwise the checkbox is like this. But when you select either of the option, say for example, again we take the example of gender of female and male. So you have to select either of the two genders, and if I select female, then this checkbox will be tick marked. So the one which is tick marked is the one which has been selected. So this is how a text box looks like, a checkbox looks like when you select values within it. It consists of a square box followed by a textual description. You will have a textual description like this of the input field, for which the user is to provide yes no value. Yes, it can be either some list, some value which you have to select, or it can be a yes no value also. Like if it will ask you if you are married, marital status, if you are married, and then checkbox, and then yes and no. So if you are married, you will select this checkbox. If you are not married, you will select this checkbox. Then comes your list box. List box is like the drop down box only, but the difference is that here the box does not drop down. When you select on the arrow, it does not drop down. Rather, you do not have any arrow like this. Rather, you have the scroll bar from where you can scroll. So the list can be scrolled from top to bottom and it is visible all the time, unlike the drop down list which drops down and then you can see all the options. Otherwise you cannot see the options. But in a list box you can see the options all the time, and to see the options below further you have to scroll down further. So this is how a list box looks like. So this is the scroll bar. You can see all the available options of the list box, and when you want to see the options which are below this, you have to scroll down further through the list box and you can see the available options by scrolling down. Also by scrolling up and down you can see the available options, and this is a specific window size in which all the options can be seen. To see the options above the window size or below the window size, you have to scroll up or you have to scroll down, but in general some of the options are always visible in the list box, whereas in the drop down box the options are not visible unless you click on this down arrow on the drop down list, and then the list drops down and then you can see all the available options. So this is the difference between the list box and the drop down box. So a list box is a control that requires to user to select data items value from the list of possible choices. Like here it says choose a background color and there are a list of available colors. So you can select either of the available colors. Like here this option is selected, so you can see that this option is highlighted. So from the list of available options you can select any of the option of your choice and then it gets highlighted like this. It is a rectangular box and contains one or more rows of possible data values. So you can see that this is a rectangular box and then there is one or more rows of possible data values. So these are the rows of the data values. The values may appear either as textual description or graphical representation. So it is not necessary that every time the values have to be textual descriptions. Sometimes you can also find list boxes which have graphical representation, but the selected element has to be but the available elements can be selected in the similar manner. Then is your spin box. Now spin box looks something like this. Like in MS Word also you must have seen while adjusting your font size or while providing spacing within the paragraphs, you must have seen the list box scroll down boxes. You just have to scroll up and down and then the spin box, they kind of spin. So you scroll up, it spins to a value higher than 100. You scroll down, it spins to a value lesser than 100, right? Here also you spin up, it scrolls to a value higher than 1. You spin down, it scrolls to a value lesser than 1. So basically these are what you call the spin boxes. So a spin box is used to allow the user to make an input selection by using the buttons to navigate through a small set of meaningful choices. So when there is a small set of choices, then a spin box is provided. Following steps are to be followed during the process of input design. Identify system inputs and review logical requirements. Of course, when you are designing a form for input design, you must identify what all system inputs are. Only then you will be able to figure out how the form has to be designed and what GUI controls have to be provided in the form. And you must also know what the logical requirements of the system are, because once you are aware about the logical requirements of the system, you will be better able to identify what the system inputs are. And then once you know what the system inputs are and what are the logical requirements of the system, you will be able to select appropriate GUIs controls. Like you will be able to figure out whether a list box has to be used here, or a text box has to be used here, or a combo box has to be used here. After that, design, validate and test those inputs. Once you've designed those inputs, validate them and then test those inputs, and if necessary, design the source document also. So these are the various steps for input design through the forms.